How's it going? I want to talk to you about something regarding animation, and I have been a big animation fan for nearly 50 years. And anyway, I've been a big animation, cartoon, anime fan for forever. It seems like that, and I am a fairly recent convert to Avatar: The Last Airbender and its universe, Legend of Korra, so on and so forth. And I gotta tell you, like, during the late 2000s when the show premiered on Nickelodeon, I wasn't able to get a chance to watch the show. I was a little late to the party in getting into it. I know it was a serialized story, so it was a little harder to kind of jump into. And I wasn't, during the late 2000s specifically, I wasn't at home watching TV very much. I had a lot to do and some projects going on. I had changes in my life. So, I don't know, kind of like any time in my life. But look, I was busy. So, it wasn't until I was able to watch the show later, and I figured eventually I'd catch up to it. And it wasn't until 20 that I was able to sit down and watch the show when it premiered on Netflix. And hey, I wasn't doing anything during the quarantine, so might as well catch up on the show. And I was hooked. And I not only watched that show in its entirety, I jumped right into Legend of Korra as well. And I'm kind of a sucker for this universe now. And one of the things a lot of fans will remember is that the lingering plot thread. Now, you don't need to hear me wax on about like how great the show is. If you clicked on this video, you're well aware of like the characters, the story, the world building, the animation. It's great. You don't need to hear me talk about it. The plot thread of Zuko and Azula's mom, Ursa, and her disappearance and whereabouts were left as a mystery. And gee, there was a big like MCU style after credit scene where Zuko asks Ozai, "Where is my mother?" And like, okay, we're gonna get to that, and they never did. There's some stories about how they were hoping to get to it and were not able to. They did wonderfully troll the audience in the first 10 minutes of Legend of Korra, where an elderly Katara almost tells her grandkids, "Oh, hey, that's an amazing story. Let me get into it for you," and is rudely interrupted by one of her grandkids who has moved on and is bored and wants to talk about other stuff. Oh, it's very funny. I love that I've seen fans tricked by that, like thinking, "Oh man, we're gonna find out." Like, that would have been a really poor way to bring that information. A character removed from the situation, Katara, telling characters more removed from the situation in the first 10 minutes of a new show. So that's not the proper way to do it. You need to kind of flesh it out properly and let the story kind of sit and simmer and work with the people directly involved. But for the longest time, it didn't look like they were able to do that in animation form. Now the new show and films are about to come out, but that's a pretty recent change, mostly because of the big resurgence on Netflix, I should say. But until then, they really had no way to do that except in one form, in comic books. And that brings me to The Last Airbender, Avatar: The Last Airbender, The Search. And this is written by, Jean Lung Yang, and the art and cover is done by Gur Yuhairu. And from what I understand, Gur Yuhairu is not really one particular artist, it's an artist team. And you may have seen some of their work on some Marvel and DC books like The Unstoppable Wasp, and working with Yang on Superman Smashes the Klan. Both of these are terrific, by the way, highly recommended. But I want to talk about this book where we finally get into the mystery and we get answers. This isn't just a book that kind of like, just it kind of dicks around with the lore and just gets you to buy money, spend money on the book. No, it's actually the story, and it's quite captivating, and I can't wait to get into it. Let's start talking about it right now. Hey, how's it going? I'm back, and we're gonna talk about the plot basically on how the comic, kind of rolls out. So essentially, what we're gonna do is this came in 3 parts, but the version I got was the collected trade. But I'll do my best to kind of sum it up because I can't remember exactly when it breaks. With that said, let's go. You see, this story might surprise you because The Search is essentially a love story, and like many love stories before, it starts with a couple of theater dorks, and Akeem and his girlfriend Ursa. Yes, that Ursa. She is enjoying life with Akeem, just kind of doing plays and being geeks and stuff like that. But it all comes to an end when the Fire Lord visits their town, and he has some great news. Well, great news for his son Ozai, in that he has chosen Ursa to be Ozai's bride, and she and her family have very little to say about it, frankly. Matter of fact, when they take Ursa, she actually saves Akeem's life because he tries to stop the whole proceeding, and you know how well that'll go. Like, considering Ozai burns his son's face for disagreeing with him in public, it would not be good news for Akeem. So anyway, we cut to the present, and the first 2 thirds of the story kind of tell its story in rotating flashbacks. We have our story going forward in the present, and it's built on the flashbacks, kind of telling us how we got here. So anyway, in the present, Zuko is trying to get Ozai to talk. Like, it stems from, the last episode of the original series, and he still can't get him to talk. He is in a prison cell. He comes to his cell maybe daily, going, "Where's my mom?" And he's like, "I ain't talking." So he gets a brilliant idea. Hold on. He pulls Azula out of the insane asylum, and that's where she's been since the fall of Ozai. And this series, The Last Airbender, takes place during, I don't know what, they're kind of vague with the timeline, but it's kind of like, to our time, it's late 19th century, and if you've been paying attention, late 19th century was not a great time for insane asylums, mental wards, and such like that. So much so that much of our horror fiction still builds today on how terrible insane asylums were back during this period, if they even existed. So he kind of does her a favor. He pulls her out, and he's going to put her, this is his ingenious plan, he's going to put her in a jail cell next to Ozai, because they're close, and they might start talking, like, "Hey, Azula, it's been a while. Remember, we killed your mom? Yeah, that was great." And that's what he hopes. Like, maybe they'll just start talking. Maybe, if they're listening in on them, they can find out, what's going on, which actually isn't a bad plan. The problem with this plan is Ozai and Azula are complete assholes, and they will never give you what you want from them. They don't talk, or at least they're very minimal in how they speak and communicate with each other. So frustrated Zuko and Ty Lee, by the way, go in to check on Azula, and she of course uses that opportunity to escape. She kind of escapes and immediately runs to one of Ozai's private rooms, and finds one of Ursa's letters that she sent to Akeem. And this would have a lot of evidence that she's reading it and shit like that. And Zuko immediately gets to her and goes, "What are you doing?" And she's like, "Haha, I have this letter that tells me where she is went. She is gone. And let's see, would you like to know where it is?" And it's like, "Yeah." And she, whoosh. And of course she does that because she's, like I said, a complete asshole. So she instantly burns it and goes, "If you want to see where our mother is, you got to take me, the person who has put it nicely, very strong words for her." So Zuko, not being that stupid, he's like, "Well, I know she wants to kill her, and she'll probably kill me. So I have a good idea. I'm gonna get some backup." And of course, he calls Aang, Katara, and Sokka. Toph can't make it to this trip. She is busy setting up her metal bending academy, and we'll visit that in other graphic novels. It's too bad. Side note, since I'm not going to really talk much about Toph in this video, it's too bad she's not here. We don't really get that much interactions between her and Azula, so this would have been a nice opportunity for them to kind of butt heads. But yeah, whatever. It probably would have put too many characters in a very focused story. So, okay, that I get it. So anyway, yeah, they go back to flashbacks as far as like the wedding, and the wedding scene is actually one of like the most twisted, darkest Ozai moments, because yeah, we've seen how evil he can be, but yeah, he's kind of cartoonishly villainous in a lot of the scenes we see him in, and a lot of the darkest stuff about him happens because of him, frankly, and within his shadow and what people do for him and his policies and shit like that. It's very rare that we actually get to see him directly be absolutely terrible and evil and manipulative. And the wedding scene, which is supposed to be, I guess, kind of cheerful, we have her family over to the side in the background, where the focus is, of course, on Ozai and Ursa. And yeah, she'll miss her village. This is not the life she had hoped for, but she at least gets to see her family. And he leans into her and tells her, like, "I hope you enjoy seeing your mother and father right now, because this is the last time you're going to see them." And just goes back to the ceremony, and there's this look of absolute horror on her face as he just casually whispers that to her. It's for me, it's the most evil, darkest Ozai moment, even more so than any big grandiose speech he gives Aang. God, it's horrifying. It's really good stuff. Anyway, on the trip there, they of course get into it with Azula, and she feels like she's been kind of vague on where to go. She's like, "Okay, go over here, go over here," and she just jumps off Appa. And of course, she lands in the forest. The others follow her, and they're immediately attacked by this spirit wolf. Very cool design, by the way. So, they attack, they fight it. Azula's actually able to, like, scare it off. And this is kind of sort of building a trust moment between the two, but of course not. But yeah, one of the things that Zuko's hoping during this adventure is not only will he find his mother again, but maybe he can have a connection with Azula. Like, he and his sister have always been so cross with each other, and there's only been brief moments where they were kind of like bonding, particularly in the episode The Beach. So maybe they can have that again. That would be nice. I understand that feeling myself. So there is a moment where he is able to have a conversation with Katara and Sokka, and Sokka and Katara, like, talk about, the bonding they've had over the years, and their, sibling bond, and, hey, we're not always agreeing, but, we're there for each other, and, like, stuff like that. It's kind of sweet. And, of course, he's, like, thinking about his sister and how they don't have that same bond as Katara and Sokka does. And he knows she's asleep, so he goes to very sweetly, like, put a blanket over her, and then he notices, tucked in her outfit, is a letter. It's the letter that she claimed she burned. And apparently she did a whole switch. Like, she read this letter and then burned this unimportant piece of paper and told him it was the letter. So he picks it up and starts reading it while she's asleep. And it's a letter from Ursa to Akeem, and it refers to Zuko as our son. Not my son, our son. And that opens up a whole can of worms for Zuko, because, okay, maybe that'll let me off emotionally off the hook with Ozai, because he's not a real dad. So screw that guy, and maybe I can find my real dad. 2, I've spent my entire life trying to impress this guy, trying to get this guy to love me and, honor me, and I've done everything I can for him, and he's just treated me like garbage and not my dad, and he probably knew it. And also, this would create a bit of a political issue for him, because, like, if he wasn't really Ozai's son, what would that mean as his standing as the Fire Lord, as this... He just started his reign as the Fire Lord, and he's doing his best to kind of, like, improve the country and improve its relationship with the world, and kind of, like, try and evoke, stronger, like, rights, and try and kind of rebuild the country. How would that be disrupted if it suddenly got out that maybe he wasn't Ozai's son? So not great. And let's see, that's kind of where I'm ending part 1. Hey, I'm over here now. So, where did we leave off last? Yeah, Zuko actually is able to swipe the letter from Azula and sees the letter that says, hey, you're the dad, Akeem. And this puts Zuko in a world of anxiety. Because, like, hey, okay, he's not really Ozai's son. All this struggle and trouble he went through to win over his approval, is that worthless? Does he not owe Ozai anything anymore? Maybe he's more angry at Ozai? What's this mean for his connection with Azula? Like, are they really, like, full sibling? Well, they're half siblings if necessary. And Aang brings up the very logical question is, does this affect him being Fire Lord? And hey, who is Fire Lord if you aren't rightfully the Fire Lord? And then Azula pops into the scene looking like a maniac. And that kind of, like, underlines that dangerous point. Like, Zula's not a good person and not in the right mind right now. And geez, that would be pretty terrible if the attempt to kind of redeem the Fire Nation would just be cut off at the knees before it really even got started. So there's a lot of pressure on Zuko here, and while they're kind of, like, trying to find their way on this journey, they're taken in by a lovely couple. Let's see, Noreen and Noriko. And, they're an older couple, and they have, like, a young daughter. And they're very sweet, and they kind of give comfort and shelter to the gang. but they still need to go into the forest and kind of find the mystery of whatever happened to Ursa. On their way, they also find this other pair of siblings, brother and sister, and horrifyingly enough, the brother, his face is gone. His face was stolen by the face stealer guy from season 1, the face stealing spirit, and she is hoping that maybe she can repair him by the mother of faces. And let's see, Aang needs to like go into the spirit world. He needs to like find the wolf spirit. He needs to find the mother of faces to kind of like dig deeper into this mystery, and he does so. I like the fact that even though this is a Zuko and Ursula, a Zuko and Azula and Ursa story, it does find time to give Aang agency and a method of progressing the plot, and he does so very nicely in this, because he is kind of, in a lot of cases where it's not his story arc, his character arc in a particular story, he is kind of the mediator, and that's essentially what the Avatar's job is, in a way, is to be a mediator. So, anyway, he finds the Mother of Faces, and he finds some interesting... She is actually... Here, her design is stunning. And she is literally the mother of the Face Stealer. And she has been in the human realm. And she essentially is similar in power structure to the Face Stealer, although she can change faces and give you faces from others instead of just stealing them. And anyway, we find out that, cut to a long story short, we kind of like discover that the reason nobody's been able to find Ursa for so long is when she escaped, and this is the thing, she made a deal, and I can't remember if this was, I don't think this was very clear in the episode, but she made a deal with Ozai, like, look, you let me leave and don't kill my children, and you get to have everything you want. You get to be Fire Lord. I will kill your father. I will poison him, and you get to be Fire Lord, and I just get out of here. And he takes that deal. By the way, he accepts the deal to murder his father, and let his wife go, and abuse her son. Like, he's absolutely terrible in this. As evil as he is, he's kind of cartoonishly evil in the series, and a lot of his most vile stuff, his most real world type of evil, it's kind of like ripple effect from what he does, and it's in his shadow that all these terrible things people do to each other. And he's just the big bad at the top. This we get to kind of see like how petty he is, and like how just like slimy evil he is, and he's very manipulating, and just, it's almost a shame that this won't be adapted into a animated film, because God, I'd really love to hear Mark Hamill recite some of this dialogue. I think he would really have fun really getting into it. But anyway, we discovered that Ursa escaped, went immediately back to her old boyfriend, and knowing that, look, she's the queen of the Fire Nation. Someone's going to discover her in this small village. But she wants to be with him, and their best idea is to find the Mother of Faces, and she gives them both new faces and new identities. The catch is she won't remember her previous life, and she takes that deal. So she forgets Zuko. She forgets, her life as Ursa, and she takes on this new identity, like purely, and it's rather sad because, like, Zuko finds this out, and she's willing to, like, completely abandon both of them. But, like, she is, you can honestly understand it because she's suffered so much, and she's a victim of Ozai in many of the same ways that her kids are. They're just different. Zuko, of course, takes the more direct, classic abuse, where it's more complex on Ursa and Azula. So anyway, to make a long story short, if it's too late for that, when Azula finds this out, she goes straight back to Noriko's, or Ursa's house, to kill her. Like, she has been believing this entire time that Ursa's been behind the scenes manipulating, because that's what she knows. She does it, her father does it, of course Ursa would do it, right? She has been, like, becoming increasingly paranoid, and this starts in the last couple episodes. It starts in the finale of the original series, and it gets worse and worse during this, where she just believes that every step of the way, every inconvenience she has, is Ursa doing something, trying to destroy her. And her whole mission has been, I'm gonna just go and kill her. And she gets to that point, and Zuko, Aang, and Katara, and Sokka get chased. She gets right there in the house in front of the family. She puts Ursa, or Noriko, up against the wall, and she tells her the truth, and Noriko, or Ursa, tells her, I'm sorry I didn't love you enough. And Azula, who has been nothing but evil and horrible to people, she emotionally crumbles, and the artwork really sells that. It's been selling her paranoia and anger and manicness and craziness, and just the heartbreak in those panels is just, it's hard. Like, this moment really, to me, was really difficult. It's really painful to have someone, your mother, who you come from, and you have some natural attachment to, no matter your situation, no matter how many times people tell you, it doesn't matter who your biological mother is, who your mother is, and if they don't treat you well, if they're abusive to you, they don't earn your love and respect, and that's true. But it doesn't feel true when you deal with it at certain points. And this moment for Azula is just really hard. It's one of the most. It's easily the most, out of the graphic novels and comics, the most emotionally painful moment I've read in this series, and I would probably put it in among the most painful moments I've experienced in the Avatar universe. And she can't do it. She blinks. She can't kill her, and she runs off and escapes, not before telling Zuko, like, how pathetic and weak he is, and while she is, like, crying and running away, and Zuko lets her go. And it's tough. it's a tough sequence, and yes, she escapes into the world, and Aang's like, maybe we should like get her, and they don't, but that's how that ends. So let me get into the sum up here. That's really good coffee, excuse me. All right, so let's sum this up. Ursa is able to remember, and she is able to have one last scene with Zuko, and Zuko has questions. First off, is Akeem really my father? And she confesses, no. Ozai really is your father. So, of course, that begs the question, like, why did you really kind of lean into Akeem being my father in these letters? And she confesses because she was sending letters back home, and she suspected Ozai was reading them. And she purposely wrote that in a letter to test him, to see if he was reading her letters. And it flashes back to that scene of him confronting her about it. And, he tells her, like, of course I know. And, like, why would you think I wouldn't know? And she's like, well, I was doing that to test you and see. And you really are reading them, okay? And he tells her, like, if you truly think I'm so disgusting and your precious Zuko couldn't be my son, then I will treat him like he's not my son. And that is kind of the origin of how awful he treats Zuko versus how he treats Azula. And she is indirectly responsible for that. She apologizes to Zuko for not being truly the mother. I mean, despite that he loves her so much, she's not been the best. And she's not been, it's kind of obvious that she wasn't the mother for Azula, but, like, let's face it, Azula is, like, mean and evil. So you can kind of forgive some of her mistreatment of her, but not really. But particularly with Zuko, she has not been... I really enjoy the writing of this in that she is not treated as... She's not put up on some sort of pedestal that she was this perfect mom that, just got caught up marrying the worst guy. And you know what? They could have done that story and they could have still done that well. In the series, they allude to it in the series and they really lean into it in this comic. And they don't avoid that. And it's kind of... It makes it all the more emotionally difficult to deal with. Because you would love her to be like this perfect, loving, caring mother, but people aren't perfect, and they make mistakes, and they get caught up in their own problems, and they have to try and figure out how to deal with it. And sometimes there is unfortunately damage done to others as they try to navigate their way through their own problems, and it's not pretty. So anyway, it does end with them coming to peace, and he essentially is going to go, well, I guess we never found Ursa, and I will, of course, leave you to the life you always wanted. And, they able to make peace. Unfortunately, Azula is not able to do that. And there is another graphic novel where Azula returns. I'll talk about that one within a few months, I guess. I need to read it. I still haven't read it, actually. But that's The Search, and I know this is a spoiler review, but I do encourage you to read this, especially if you're an Avatar fan. If you ever wondered whatever happened to Ursa, this is everything, and this is fantastic. There were stories out there that they are not planning to adapt any of the graphic novels into the new Avatar Studios animation, which I'm fine with, but this is the only thing that I wish they would just, if they just do one, it would be this one, because this one's fantastic. And it's kind of important to the lore, really. But as far as an emotional piece, it really kind of sticks out there. With all this epic machinations and fighting and spirits and all this kind of stuff. I mean, the heart of this is the relationship in this family of Ursa, Ozai, Zuko, and Azula, and it gets to the heart of family, because family can either be a source of comfort and love and nurturing, or horrible anxiety and torture and damage. And a lot of times they can be both, and that's probably, if I had to guess, that would probably be the norm, where, of course, this focuses on different aspects of that, like, Zuko and Azula, versus, like, the brother and sister we see, dealing with the face thief, and of course Katara and Sokka. But they've had their issues too. They've had their losses, but they're still very much supportive and loving each other. Versus the Ozai family, which is not the best, and it really does like strike the heart of why this has like been so meaningful to people over the years. It's if it was just super kung fu cartoon, that would be fine. It could still be as loved as it was, but it's always been a little bit more than that, and this really does do a wonderful job, taking that to heart. So yeah, if you're able to get one Avatar: The Last Airbender graphic novel, get this one. This is fantastic. I'd give it easy 5 out of 5 Ram chips. Go check it out. Even if you haven't read this and you heard me yammer about it in detail, this is not doing it justice. It really does need to be read and absorbed. And it's gorgeous art. It's really wonderful storytelling, and highly recommend it. Go check it out. All right, that's the Manos collection for this month. And next month, I haven't picked the comic, but I will be talking about something in July. So look for me there. I'm going to try and keep doing these once a month at least. And if I can get to a good repetition with it, maybe I'll do 2 a month. Ooh. Anyway, you can support Manos Publishing and the Real Manos YouTube channel over at Patreon for just $1 a month. And you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Tumblr. I'm still on Twitter at the moment. And you can support Red Knight as well. The new issue for issue 7 was a successful Kickstarter. We'll be doing that, and hopefully in July, August, we'll be sending out copies to people. And then you'll be able to pick up the comic on manospublishing.com. So, that's enough business. I think that's it. I'll be talking to you next time. Push the button, Lindsay.